Hello, and welcome to Teaching Microsoft Office Online. I'm Kerri Shields, and I'm a longtime professor at Centennial College in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And I've been teaching Microsoft Office for many years, and most recently, virtually. After this session, you will be able to identify issues with teaching Microsoft Office Online, and recommend solutions. You will be able to identify tools that support teaching Microsoft Office skills, explain how to set up a Certiport authorized test center at your institution, and discuss how to provide an opportunity for stakeholders to obtain Microsoft Office Specialist certification. So a few things to consider when you're designing an online course for Microsoft Office. Selecting the right amount of content, and structuring the LMS. Delivery, will you deliver asynchronously, synchronously, or in hybrid mode? Access to hardware and software, both for professors and for students, and the technical requirements. So course design, content, and LMS structure. So many institutions have a teaching and learning department that supports professors in developing online courses. And I'll give you an example here. This is Concordia, and Concordia has a teaching and learning center. And they have information here about using Zoom, providing online feedback to students, moving your course meeting online. And so there's tips and techniques and people in these departments that can actually help us with designing the course and with finding the right content and the right tools to use to teach with. And here they have information on using the Moodle LMS, using Zoom. They have information on Microsoft Office 365. They have information on Udemy. Udemy and Coursera and LinkedIn often have courses for Microsoft Office, and sometimes they're free, and sometimes you need to pay, but we'll talk more about that as we move forward. And they have design your course. There's a toolkit here for designing your course, right? And help again from people who work in this department, and they have discussion forums in Moodle. Another example would be Stanford. They have a Center for Teaching and Learning as well. And you can see here engaging discussions online, facilitating effective online meetings. Now, one of the key things is, of course, as a professor, we need time to review these materials. We need time to connect with the Learning and Teaching Center. This is an example of Algonquin College, and Algonquin College is located in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. And they have a lot of information here about the Brightspace D2L learning management system. They have information about Zoom, information about Media Site, and this is a site that many colleges have where you can post videos for your students rather than using YouTube. What we found, one of the issues that I ran into is teaching to a global student body. Some students in certain areas of the world, such as China, actually in some areas of China could not access YouTube. So having Media Site and being able to post videos there is a good thing. It's your solution to that problem. And you know, Algonquin also talks about Microsoft Office 365, Padlets, and Kahoots, which I'm going to tell you more about soon. Adobe Spark and Mentimeter and H5P. Now, these are all tools that you can use to promote engagement and to connect with your students. And H5P is a fairly new interactive content creator. And maybe your staff in your teaching and learning center have tutorials for that, or they can help you create those. And then we have Durham College, which is also located in Toronto, Ontario, and they have a Center for Academic and Faculty Enrichment. And again, they have LinkedIn Learning here, some information about Respondus Lockdown Browser, Turnitin, virtual assignments, virtual classroom. They have information about captioning because we want to think about accessibility on videos. And so having a transcript and closed captioning is something that we need to start being aware of and doing. And sometimes our support systems in our college will help us with that. And then they talk about Office 365, quizzes, Flipgrid. Now, Flipgrid is a nice little tool for short videos, and you could have your students, for example, introduce themselves on a Flipgrid video rather than using a discussion board. H5P Studio, again, we're talking about the H5P interactive elements, which I'll be talking about shortly. And then they have information on Microsoft Teams versus virtual classroom as a conferencing tool. Now, the next thing that I'd like to talk about is the Quality Matters rubric. So if, for example, when we designed our online courses for Microsoft Office, we did this in alignment with the Quality Matters rubric. This is a standard for quality in online course development. And what they say is you need to have these 8 general standards in your course. You need to have a course overview, an introduction. And so you need to tell students about assessments and measurement and course technology that will be used, where they can find learner supports, and about where they can find support for accessibility. And you need to build in accessibility when you're designing your course as well. So what we've done is we followed this rubric, and we can get the specific details here. And we have an evaluator who evaluates the course afterwards and makes sure that all of these standards are adhered to. And we build in an orientation module. So when students first enter the course, they see a news announcement and it welcomes them to the course. There's usually a little 5-minute video from me or whichever professor is teaching. And we introduce ourselves and we sort of show the student how to use the LMS very quickly, and how to set notifications on, to be checking the news every week, to be checking their email every week, how to use the learning modules. We list out the learning modules for each week. And so we go through that for students in the first week of class. And they go through the orientation documents and they learn about the technical requirements and the learner support, such as tutoring and library and counseling and accessibility office. And then we talk about academic honesty in that orientation as well. We review the course outline or syllabus. We talk about the assessments. So we show them all of this in the orientation, and then we have them do a little quiz on the orientation, which checks their understanding of what we just told them. And then they're able to begin in the learning modules, the weekly learning modules that we set up. And so you can set up your course in weekly learning modules, or you can set them up by topic. So it doesn't necessarily have to be by weeks. In our case, we did weeks. And when we developed the course, we developed in a team. We had a subject matter expert, the professor, working with an ID, instructional designer, and that instructional designer was, familiar with the Quality Matters rubrics and worked together with the professors to create and develop the design for the course. But the instructional designer also has a lot of technical skills, and so they were able to create H5Ps and videos and embed videos and do some of the technical parts to setting up an HTML page and making that look good and making that intuitive for students to follow the flow of the course, as well as building in engagement. So it was important to build in some engagement and interaction so that students don't feel, no one's paying attention to them or they lose interest with the course, and we don't want that to happen. And then the learning materials, your other consideration, will you be using books or will you be using some software from a publisher? What sort of hands-on lessons will you give or assessments will you give? And will you use software for that? So you have to decide upon that. And I'm going to talk about what I use and share some options with you. So the first thing we should do is determine, the definitions of what's an asynchronous course, a synchronous course, or a hybrid course delivery. And I'm using hybrid, and that's a combination of the other two. So asynchronous is when you don't meet with students live. It's critical that you have your LMS set up so that it's very intuitive and easy to follow. It's critical that you build in interactive activities, right, and engagement. It's critical that you look for ways that students can communicate with each other or, communicate with the professor in an asynchronous course, because really the student needs to have a certain skill set to be successful in those types of courses. Students need to be self-disciplined enough to, be organized and have time management skills and be self-directed to some extent. And if they're not, then they may have trouble being successful in that type of delivery style. To build in some of that connection, and you can have team assignments. So something that we do is we have a group work on Office 365 in the cloud, and we have them work on an APA report. So they build a report together so they don't feel isolated or like nobody's watching them. So in an asynchronous class, they could lose motivation and they could feel isolated. We also build in an assignment where we have students work in Office 365 and collaborate on a slideshow, right, on a PowerPoint slideshow, and they create that. So again, they get to work with other members. You can have discussion boards where you have maybe even groups post certain things on discussion boards, you know, something that they learned about the software that week and then share it with the class. You can have Q&A discussion boards, question and answer discussion boards. I mean, discussion boards have been around a long time and a lot of online courses use them. And it's almost like you can have too many of them sometimes. So maybe you want to look for other ways to have collaboration, such as the ones that I just suggested. And a synchronous course, that is when the professor's meeting live with students. So you're either in the classroom or you're in a virtual classroom and you're meeting live with students. And when we meet live with students every week, you know, that conferencing tool, whether it's Zoom or virtual classroom or Microsoft Teams, whatever you're using to meet with your students, those tools usually have built-in features where you can interact with students and engage students. So you might run a poll, which is like questions, asking questions throughout the session. You might use breakout rooms and have students work in groups. Maybe you have them go off and collaborate on a document. Maybe you have them do some research and bring that back to the bigger class. Maybe you have them talk about the most difficult concept that week and then come back to the class and say, what did your group find most difficult, and go through the groups and answer those questions. So there's lots of ways to build in sort of activities in a synchronous class. And you can even have students present in a synchronous class. And I've done that before, where I have the groups present their presentations to the rest of the class. So that helps them, you know, feel engaged, helps them feel as part of a community. And then there's hybrid, which is the combination. And that's what we're doing in the courses that we teach. The courses we teach are 4 hours per week. And so for 2 hours of that 4 hours, we meet live with the students and we do various activities, and we usually teach the most difficult concepts. We answer questions. And so, you know, students gets the answers to the questions that they need right away in real time. Now, I record those sessions because many of my students are global and some of them are in different time zones. And so if I record the session, those people who cannot attend the live session can watch the recording later. And the other 2 hours per week are spent with tasks that we have provided the students, the reading, hands-on exercises, maybe research, assignments they have to work in groups on, or they do individually. So they do that for the other 2 hours per week. And so we designed the LMS so that it has weekly modules, and each week there's an overview, here's what you're going to learn, and then there's a content and activity page where the students will do the tasks. It will say you'll need to work through the tutorials in your ebook for this chapter, and then provide some exercise or whatever it is we want them to do. And so they can follow that flow pretty smoothly, and it's designed pretty much the same every week they follow, and there's a summary document at the end of the week summarizing what they learned, and there's usually a little self-check activity that we build into that. So asynchronous delivery, again, students and professors do not meet in real time. Now, with that said, many of our professors, I work in a team of 15 of us, and we teach these Microsoft courses, and many of them, we offer like a live chat, you know, once a week, maybe a live text chat for an hour if students want to text chat with us. Or we offer the odd live Zoom meeting where students can attend if they in the right time zone and if they have questions in the asynchronous delivery, because the asynchronous delivery should have an LMS that's intuitive, that students work through, where they're not actually meeting with the teacher. But what we do find is that sometimes there are technical glitches and they need some help. And we do have a technical help desk for students to call, but usually they'll contact the teacher first. And if I can answer the question, great. And if I can't, I will put them on with the help desk. But to do that, I will sometimes Zoom with some of the students, and I need to see their screens. They will screen share with me and I can see what they're doing and I can get that problem resolved. I can also share through an email with everyone what that problem was so that the other students know how to resolve it if they come across it, or I can post that on a discussion board and then the other students will know how to resolve it if they come across the same issue. Sometimes I phone students. So if we're going back and forth in email and I can't, get their problem resolved, I'll say, what's your number? What's a great time to call? And then I'll just call them and we'll talk about it and get it resolved on the phone. So again, asynchronous, while it is asynchronous, I mean, the teacher can certainly put in some community and connection, through communicating live with the students. I mean, certainly we're communicating through email and a lot more of it, and maybe through discussion boards. Maybe we're posting videos and students are following the LMS, and maybe there's interaction for them with other students from the assignments you set up or the discussion boards you set up. But also, our team, we do take time to actually connect with a student if we need to, if there's problems or technical issues that we need to solve. And some of those technical issues in an asynchronous course, in our first semester, students enter into the first semester and they don't have the sort of basic skills they need. They don't know how to set their browser settings. They don't know how to change their operating system settings. They sometimes don't even know how to change their display settings on their desktop. They may not know how to make a PDF. They don't know how to zip and unzip files. They don't know how to upload and download files. They don't know how to make folders to put their files into. And yes, we get students who don't have these skills. And so what we've done in our first semester course is we built the first 3 weeks up to teach all those skills, so that after the first 3 weeks, we know that everyone in that course has the same basic knowledge of how to do these things that they might need to do, especially in an online course. And I'll talk more about how we do that shortly. And so again, in an asynchronous course, it's very important that the LMS is structured in a way that's easy to follow, that makes sense, and that you sort of get a pattern going. And what I do every week is I post a news announcement or two, and I usually post a short video saying, this is what we're doing this week. Here's some of the key concepts, right? Here's what you need to work through. And if you have any trouble, please let me know. And then I might post another video halfway through the week where I'm demonstrating some of the concepts that were in the book. But I keep those videos short. And when I demonstrate, the video might go to 15 minutes, and that might not be what's best practice. You can check with your teaching and learning center. If a video is usually longer than 5 to 8 minutes, they usually suggest that you chunk it out. So you make a second video or a third and let the students go through them that way. What I tell my students is, if there's a 15-minute video, you can certainly pause after 5. You can actually close it after 5 minutes and come back to it and start it up again at 5 minutes and continue watching. So I tell them, you don't have to sit through a video. Some of these tutorial videos in LinkedIn or such are like an hour or 2 hours long. You don't have to watch it all in one sitting. So again, guiding students through that, they often don't know things like that. And so they need to be informed about the best ways to learn online. And just to recap again, a subject matter expert and an ID technical person built these courses together. We use the quality matter rubrics. And one thing to consider is LMS revisions. So the learning management system will need to be revised from time to time, and you need someone to do that. And because we have 15 professors teaching these courses, we picked a course lead, and that's me. And I lead the courses. So that means that I update the revisions as we need to. So sometimes if we're using a specific tool and that tool changes, or URL links change to some of the websites we're using, then I need to go in and update those. And very often my team will notify me. They'll be teaching something and say, Kerri, this isn't working, or that link is out, and I'll go and fix that. And then each semester there's an LMS sort of shell, we call it the development shell, which I keep updated, and then it gets copied out to all the professors every semester so they can start with a nice fresh layout and all it's current and everything works in it. And then they can add their own personal touches in as they go through the weeks, and they can add videos in, and they can set up a few extra links or whatever they feel is necessary. And then synchronous, where you're meeting with the students every week, what are some of the technology requirements? Well, here we run into some issues with students not being able to install maybe the Zoom, or the conference can't get it working. Sometimes their internet is really slow, and so they can't really attend the live sessions because it freezes or lags. Sometimes they don't have a webcam. Sometimes they don't have a microphone. Some of them are joining the class with an iPad, even though we've given the technical specifications to them saying, you know, best results have a laptop with these requirements, these technical requirements for RAM and hard drive space and internet speed. But again, they don't always have that. And if they remain in the course, even though we send that information out about 2 weeks before the course, and then we send it again in an email about a week before the course, and then we reiterate it again in the first week, it's also in our orientation. If a student remains in the course, we do not expect that they attend the live sessions necessarily. That's up to them. We feel that's up to them, and it's based on their technology. And also it's based on their time zone. If I'm giving a class at 3 p.m. and it's 3 a.m. in certain parts of the world, I don't expect my student to wake up at 3 a.m. to attend my live class. So what I do is I record the session and post the recordings, and that way people who cannot attend for those reasons can watch the recording later. And so these are some of the issues, but we've kind of combated those issues by being a little more lenient and making it like putting the responsibility on the student on how they want to learn. So in some way, this course becomes high flex because it's very flexible. They can attend in person in the synchronous sessions. They can just take the course as an asynchronous course, and they can follow all the weekly modules, and they can watch the recordings that I post every week. They don't have to attend live at all. So there is some flexibility there for the student in how they wish to attend this course. And I think as a learner, when I am a learner, and I've often been a learner, I appreciate that. And you know yourself, when we're busy with work and family or whatever our responsibilities are, it's nice to be able to learn when you have the time and when you want to learn. And again, first semester students may struggle with some of those things about time management and being organized and being, you know, self-disciplined enough to be checking in on the course and spending those 4 hours every week on the course. Some of them are not really, they don't have well-developed skills yet for that. So that is a bit of a struggle for us, a bit of an issue, but all we can do is, you know, offer that support and I send out reminders. I have a calendar of due dates. I email with reminders, especially in first semester. As students in second semester and further semesters, they seem that they've built those skills up a little more by then, and they're a little more self-aware and self-directed and a little less, you know, take more responsibility, I guess. And then I don't need to do as much reminding. And learning styles, right? So that's what I'm saying about learning styles. They may not have built those skills up yet that they need. And then the LMS design in a synchronous delivery, yes, it's still important, and yes, it should be intuitive, and yes, it should follow some kind of quality standards. But even if it isn't as well designed, the teacher's meeting every week live with the students. So the teacher has the ability to review an assignment live with the students, to have them ask questions, to show them which folders to use in the LMS and how to navigate the LMS. So you're showing that because you're demonstrating it during your live session. So I think that helps and takes a little bit off of the pressure for the LMS to be very intuitive. Engagement in a synchronous delivery, well, again, you can have polls. The synchronous you know, software often has built-in features such as polling or breakout rooms, where you can put students in breakout rooms and they can work in groups, and then you can have them report back to the larger class. Maybe you have them research something or share the most difficult concept for that week. Maybe you have them go off and work on a collaboration document in Microsoft 365 during the live session. Maybe you use the poll to ask questions throughout the live session. So in the live session, there's more of a sense of community. There's more of a sense of participation and engagement because you're there and you're motivating the students, and a lot of them are motivated by the professor. So I think that is a nice thing for students as well. And not everyone likes to record their sessions, but it's certainly something you should give some thought to, because it does solve those issues around time zone problems and sometimes the technology issue with, you know, internet speed. They can watch a video later where when they're trying to connect live, you know, the bandwidth on the internet and whether or not they have a webcam. And I don't expect them all to use the webcam or the microphones, because we do have a chat, a text chat that happens throughout the whole class. And I often ask questions and they text chat their answers in the text chat box, and they sometimes put questions in there as well. And then what we're doing in the courses that I'm teaching at Microsoft Office Online is we're doing a hybrid. So we're doing a combination of the two, real-time and synchronous and then asynchronous. Online courses, access to hardware. So some of the issues that we've run into, I've mentioned a couple, but students come with outdated devices. Sometimes they don't even have a laptop. Sometimes they say they're borrowing their friends or their siblings' laptop. Sometimes they just have iPads. Sometimes they come with Mac computers. And all of these seem to cause some issues because the software they need varies. And right now, working at a distance, people are using their own devices, and the professor can't be the technical expert on every device and every operating system and everything that's out there. So you do have, hopefully, a help desk, an IT help desk, where students can get some help from there. And what we do is we have some solutions to this, which we're going to talk about, but also they may not have a webcam and they may not have a microphone. And what I do is I don't make that mandatory for them to use those devices. So instead I use the text chat, and that solves that problem if somebody doesn't have a webcam, for example. And the other day I did a class and the student said, well, my microphone is broken, because he was asking a lot of questions in text chat. And I said, would you like to speak? And he said, well, my microphone is broken. I said, okay, no problem. So these expectations, I think maybe as a professor, we have to be a little more flexible ourselves in what we expect when we have such a diverse group of students. And in my case, very globally located students. They're not all in Canada. Now, one thing that our college came up with as a solution to this problem is they have a laptop loaner program. And so they've loaned out over 1,000 laptops. Now, it's a great program, and I'm happy that we have that. That's for students who may not have enough technical requirements on their devices, or they're using an old device or something. They can get a loaner from the college. But the loaner program only applies to people in the vicinity of the college. They won't loan laptops out to other countries, for example. So that doesn't really solve problems in that aspect, right? And so we solve that problem in other ways, which I'll talk about soon. Also, another thing that many colleges are doing is they're providing hardware to students. They're providing a device to students in a tuition program. So students pay tuition, and then they are given a device. They're actually buying it through their tuition, and they get to keep the device. And another thing that institutions are doing is bring your own device, which we're all doing now because students are using their own devices. And again, we have to have some supports in place to help with technical issues, because students don't always know, that maybe a firewall is stopping a website from popping up. And how do I change that on my internet settings? Sometimes we refer students to their internet service provider, to their ISP. We've had students with issues that they can't connect to a certain test website that we're using. And when they can contact their ISP, they find out that they have to pay $5 a month for a special app that allows them to connect to North America websites. So these are things that we've run into, but we've found solutions for. And then access to software, which actually solves a few of our hardware problems. So one of the things is we have Microsoft Office 365, and our IT department buys the licenses for that and distributes it. And every student that comes to our college gets free access, or it's included in their tuition, but access to the Microsoft Office 365. So even a student using like, an iPad or a tablet, they can access the Microsoft Office 365 online, because all you need is a browser, right? And even if they have an old laptop, they can still access that. And it works fairly well. We haven't run into a lot of issues with that. So that's sort of our solution about the hardware problems. If you have Microsoft Office in the cloud, most devices can use that. The other thing that we offer is we have Microsoft eStore. So again, through our IT department, they have worked out something with Microsoft, because our IT department buys so much software from Microsoft and licenses all of this. We can get Microsoft Windows 10 and Microsoft Office 2019, for example, free for our students. So students with a device that has the technical requirements needed to install Windows 10 and Office 2019, then they're able to just download a copy and install it directly on their device, which is the optimal preferred way, because software works best when it's installed and working fully. And so that's our step one. If you can install this, then go ahead and do it. It's free for you as part of your being a student at our college. And if you can't do this, then maybe you can use Microsoft Office in the cloud, right? And for institutions who may not have that Microsoft Office in the cloud available to students, there is a free Microsoft Office online that you can refer your students to, and I'll talk about that soon. And another option that we have, our IT department is fabulous. So if they're watching this, I said they're fabulous, but they have virtual machines. And the virtual machines are great because any student can connect to a machine at the college, a device at the college that already has Windows 10 on it, already has Microsoft Office 2019 installed. And the student virtually connects through a browser, a web browser, and then they're able to use that machine. So they see the desktop of the machine, they get all the software that's loaded on the machine. And these are the computers that we would normally be using if we were there face-to-face in a computer lab. And so that has solved a lot of issues. So anybody with a Macintosh, anybody with an old laptop, they can just virtually connect to the school and use the desktop of another computer and do all their work there. So that's sort of our solutions to those hardware and software issues. Now, tools for learning. So the first thing that I just mentioned was the free Office Online. If your institution doesn't have sort of a program that shares software for free with students, first of all, I would suggest you check with your IT team, because if they're ordering Microsoft Office or they order a lot of software from Microsoft, there probably is something they can do to help get some distribution to students. But if not, there is a free Office Online. And so your students can use this free Office, and they just sign up and you can use it for free. And it's limited in what it can do, but they also promote that if a student wants to, they can buy Microsoft Office 365 online, and they can rent it per month at like about $11 per month. Or they can pay an annual fee and have it for a whole year. So these are options for students where your institution is not providing that software to the student. Again, fixing another issue if you don't have that in place already. So SAM, just to talk about another tool. So this is a tool for learning. I'm on the tools now, and we have a lot of them. But SAM is a tool from Cengage, and this is sort of a pre-designed course in itself. What it does is it has weekly modules that each week a student would learn a chapter in the book. It has an ebook loaded, and it has the student do hands-on tutorials, and you see a little screen capture there of whatever software they're learning, and it has built-in assignments and exercises. Students do those exercises, and then they download a file, for example, and they complete the exercise in MS Word or Excel, and they upload the file back to SAM. And SAM stands for Skills Assessment Manager. And what it does is it marks those assignments. So it takes a good load off of the professor in the marking area, and it grades those assignments, and it also checks for plagiarism. And it will let the professor know if they find plagiarism, and the professor can address that. So SAM is a great tool, and I used it for many years. And it costs about $75 per student. But again, you can talk to your sales rep and negotiate pricing and see how many students you have and all of that. And you know, students really liked it, and it ran very well. And I believe with SAM, you do need a version of the software installed on your own device. But again, you can check if they've got a cloud version of this now or not. Something to think about. And you would want to maybe get a demonstration of that from your sales rep first and see how it works if you've never seen it before. And then Pearson has My IT Lab, which is also teaching Microsoft Office in a contained sort of step-by-step instructional course. And it's a whole course online. And it's great, again, for online teaching. We have used this in the classroom too, when we have used the My IT Lab in the past. And again, it has week-by-week tutorials. It has an ebook inside. Students do the exercises. It grades the exercises. It catches plagiarism. It's very good. I highly recommend both of these. And it's about $75 per student as well. And it's one of your options in what sort of tools and resources are you going to provide for your course. Now, I've moved away from these to something new, and I'll tell you what that is shortly, but I want to make sure that all your options are here, because these all have pros and cons, and your best bet would be see a demo of the tool. You know, to me, the students are paying $75 for it, which is reasonable. And, you know, it cuts down on marking, and it helps catch plagiarism. So it is a great tool. Both of these tools prepare the students for Microsoft Office certification, and they even have a practice test included in them, which is nice. Jasper Active is another one of those tools. This comes from CCI Learning, and it does the same idea, step-by-step instruction, practice. It has an ebook, and it has a Microsoft Office practice. This is usually sold as a site license right now rather than a per student fee, and it's based on the number of students you have, so you'd have to check with the sales rep to see, and I don't know if they're bringing out an individually priced option, but with SAM and with my IT lab, your students can buy that through the bookstore, or they can buy that directly from Pearson or Cengage. And this is where I'm at today. So now what I've done with my Microsoft Office courses is I've switched to Gmetrics. And so what we do is we use ebooks, and we have students do the tutorials in these ebooks, which I actually purchased from CCI Learning. We'll talk about that soon. And then I have the students work in Gmetrics to practice and prepare for the MOS exam, the Microsoft Office Specialist exam. So Gmetrics is not a full-fledged course in itself. It has practice tests, and a lot of people in industry use Gmetrics to prepare for the Microsoft exams. And we purchased it as it comes as a site license. So I purchased it as a site license for our students. And again, you'd have to talk to CCI Learning can sell this. I bought this through CCI Learning. Students can purchase this individually online for about $75 a student. But if you buy a site license, it can range, let's say, $6,000 to $7,000, and you can check that as a Canadian dollar, so you can check the US pricing. Certiport also probably distributes this, so you want to get a hold of a rep who can distribute this if you want a site license. What I like about the site license is we're certifying about 3,000 students per year on Microsoft, so we can distribute this to, you know, all of our students in the business school, maybe 5,000 students. So, and we still just pay an annual fee to have that as a site license. Then we have LinkedIn Learning. We do use LinkedIn Learning as an option for students. I really love LinkedIn Learning, and the reason is it's video-driven learning, but it also has the Microsoft Office courses within, and these have exercises in them. And the thing about LinkedIn Learning that's great is it comes with closed captioning, it comes with transcripts. Students can speed up the video, students can rewatch the video, students can take notes from the transcripts. So I think that, like, as a learning tool, it's excellent. So we are using it right now as optional learning. I have not moved fully to it in this course yet, because we still are using the Gmetrics and the ebooks combination. But this is definitely something I'll think about in the future. We do put it in our learning modules each week as an option for students. So if they would prefer to go there and watch a video, you know, and learn that way, then we give them that option. And then there's places online that have free courseware. So this place, Goodwill Community Foundation, they have videos for students. I do link out to some of these videos. I also link out to Microsoft videos, because Microsoft has a whole learning center and they have videos and articles there. So we provide those to students as well. We don't provide just like, here you go, here's everything. We pick and choose the ones that we are relevant to that week's topic, and then we embed 1 or 2 or 3 videos. Remember, you don't want to overwhelm students with having, here, go out here and look at all of this. You want to pick and choose what's best for them to learn each week, you know, otherwise they may become overwhelmed. They may become, you know, demotivated, and we don't want that. So here at Goodwill Community Foundation, what I like about this is they have sort of the internet skills, you know, if you want to do email and internet skills before you get into the Microsoft software. And they also have the Microsoft software, and they have different courses on that. And they're well done, and they're free. So spend a little time, have a look at this and see if this fits with your goals for your course and what you want to do. Microsoft Imagine Academy, we have used this. So when we were teaching Office 2013 and we were teaching Office 2016, we used to use the Microsoft Imagine Academy tools. And I used to pay $1,600 a year for a site license for these materials. And we would get our ebooks out of there, and some exercises, and some study guides, and some slides, and some instructor guides. So there's a lot of material in the Microsoft Imagine Academy. Now, many institutions can get this for free now. Again, if your IT department is ordering a lot of Microsoft software, you may want to check with them and see if they can get the Microsoft Imagine Academy for free. Our IT did get it for free eventually, and then I was able to distribute this as a site license to thousands of students free of charge. And the nice thing about that is we have the books embedded right in the course LMS. So the first day students start, they have their courses, they have their materials, they have their book. They can work through the tutorials in the chapter. And there's no waiting for them to buy a book at the bookstore. There's no waiting for them to pay for something. They have their books. And so Microsoft Imagine Academy was great for that. But when Microsoft Imagine Academy we moved to Office 2019, we found that the materials in the Academy were not as robust as they were with the 16 and the 13 versions. And so we moved away from that now. We're using something else, which we'll talk about. So now we're using the CCI learning books, and I did have to pay for those books, and I again purchased a site license. And the site license from CCI Learning for their ebooks is based on the number of students that you have. So you'd have to check with a sales rep to see what they would charge for a site license. At this point in time, I don't believe they have individual pricing that students can buy their books. But we went with this book because buying the site license allowed me to put together a package for students that was a lot less costly for students than what we were doing before. So in the past, we've used the SAM and the My IT Lab, and those came with a book. Pearson has the Go series, the Your Office, and the Exploring series. And Cengage has New Perspectives, Illustrated, and Shelley Cashman series. Some of these probably are familiar to you. And we were using those with the tool, with the online learning tool, SAM or My IT Lab. And that was working great. And our students were paying $75 and they were getting this at the bookstore. But you know, students weren't buying them week one, right? They were delaying a lot of them. But that was how we did it. So students were paying for 2 courses at $75 each, $150. And then I decided we would put a package together. Being the course lead, you know, the team, I sent this idea out to the team. They liked it, so we did it. And what I did is I purchased this book for site license with the G-Metrics as a site license. And I opened up a training center, what's called a CAT-C training center. We already had that running before I embedded it in the course, and I'll explain how I did that as well. Then I offered the Microsoft Office certification to students as well within the course. Now I was able to provide each student with the books they need to learn, with the G-Metrics practice tool for preparing for the exam, and with one exam, and that was $25. So I took the price from $75 per course for 2 courses at $150 students were paying, down to $25 per course, which is $50 students were paying. So every student saved $100 on the course materials for these 2 courses. And now they also have an opportunity to get certified with an industry certification where we didn't have that before. So again, speak to the rep, you know, whatever tools you're thinking of using, find out what they can do for you and the pricing models. And maybe you can come up with a model that actually helps students as well. So next, I guess we'll go to the next slide. So digital literacy. Now here's something that we use and it's free. I like free. And we use this with students in the first semester for the first 3 weeks. And this is, digital literacy has recently moved to LinkedIn. It's Microsoft Digital Literacy. And it was a course they offered that was free online for many years. We've been using this for a while now. Recently, they revised it and moved it to LinkedIn, but it's still free. And what it is, the first 3 weeks of our first semester course, we introduce students to hardware, software, email, internet, safety online, searching on the internet, all of these sort of basic concepts, PDFs, zips, how do we do it? So the course teaches them all of that. And it's a great little course. It's done in LinkedIn and they get a certificate of completion at the end. The students can put that certificate in their portfolio, on their resumes, in their LinkedIn profiles. And we have them submit the certificates to us and they get 5% of their course mark for just doing the modules in LinkedIn. And so that's working well. And after the 3rd week, we know that all students have this digital literacy competency so that when we move into week 4 and we start teaching the Microsoft software, we know everybody's on board. They know how to use email. They know what a CC is. They know how to put a signature block on their email. They know what a professional email looks like when they email their teachers or their professors, and they know what a subject line is. They know what a PDF is. They know how to zip and unzip. They know how to upload and download, and they know how to make file folders to sort their course materials. And so that's important to us. And when we start week 4, we want to make sure everybody knows that before we go any further. And then H5P, now this is fun. I actually taught myself this last year. The instructional designer for your course might be able to make these for you if you tell them what you like. H5P is just creating a little gamification, if you will, something for students to do in your LMS that is interactive and keeps them engaged. So I put one of these in every week, every weekly learning module. I have one in the summary part of the week. And so, for example, these are my own. I created these. So the flashcards H5P, it will have a blank and students will fill in the blank and it'll tell them the answer if they get it wrong and tell them if they got it right. And then this one's called Hotspots, and I take a screen capture and I upload the picture, and then I put the little question marks on. So when the student clicks on the question mark, it will give them the definition for that area of the screen. So I put these in the summary component because students can self-check at the end of the week. You can also do a quiz in H5P, or I can do a quiz right in my LMS, right? If I want to check their understanding of what they learned that week. But the H5Ps are fun and they're interactive. So I think it keeps the students engaged in the LMS as well. And the last one that I'm showing today, there's about 20 of these. There's more than these 3 for sure. But memory game is another one. And memory game reminds me of when I was young and we used to flip over the cards and try to find the matches. So here students would click on a couple of cards and try to match them. You can also add voice to the cards. I added my voice a little here. And so it's kind of a fun interaction. And they can look for, like this one was PowerPoint, I believe. And so if I talk about a bulleted list, I put up a picture of a bulleted list, and then I put up a picture maybe of the button or the ribbon or something of where the bullets are. And they got to try to match those 2 things. So I just gave it some thought and thought up something fun and then developed it. There is no real coding that you need to know to make these. It's all drag and drop and fill in the blanks. And that makes it easy for many of us to get started at it. And several of the professors that I work with have gotten into this now and started designing their own H5P. But you don't need to have that technical skill if you're working with an ID, because your instructional designer can do that for you. And then there's interactive video lessons. This is another great tool, and H5P has this as one of its element choices as well. But you could use Edpuzzle, you could use H5P, and you can take a video and you can have it stop at certain parts in the video and ask a question. If I were videotaping this right now, I could have it stop and put up a question, and I can say something like, what did the presenter say about, what SAM, the product SAM, and then I can have choices for the student to choose from to answer that question. And then it goes again a few more minutes and stops and asks a question. So that's an interactive video lesson. You can have them do things while they're watching the lesson and test their understanding of the lesson. And there's a lot of different websites that have this type of interactive video lesson. And again, an ID, an instructional designer, can help you with these technical things if you want to use one of these. Our goal, I think, as a professor is being aware of what's out there, what tools could I use, and then maybe discussing with an instructional designer if they can create something for you and if that's a good tool to use for that particular task, or are there any other tools that you could use? So just exploring and finding out what's out there. Kahoot, I'm sure some of you have already used. Many of our professors were using this when we were in the classroom, and it's a fun engagement tool, and it's like a game, and it gives you the highest winners at the end of the game, the 3 students with the highest scores. And what I do is you can use this virtually, you can use this in a synchronous class or an asynchronous class, and you can use this as homework too. You can set it up so that they do it as homework. It could be something they do at the end of the week to test their understanding of the information. I use it sometimes as an icebreaker. So if I'm having a synchronous session, I'll play a Kahoot before we begin, and that Kahoot will test the knowledge from the week before. So it'll ask students questions from the week before, and then we'll move on to the new content. And this will give us winners and the 3 top scores every week. It's whoever wins sort of in the game. What I do in my LMS is I create little awards. You'll probably have that feature in your LMS. You can create little awards and you can give out awards. And so I give out awards, and a lot of students seem to like that, and they get involved in it because they want to get an award. So that helps with motivation and participation as well. Kahoot can be purchased as a site license for your school, but it can also be used just free. And most of the time free means a limited amount, but you can go, I've used it free for a few years. So I think you can look into that, or if your school has a license for this, so you could check again with your teaching and learning center. Interactive Nearpod, if you've never used Nearpod, this is a great tool, especially if you're using PowerPoints, because it makes your PowerPoints interactive and it makes them fun. And you can put in like a quiz in the middle of the slides, and you can have these interactive slides. You can make this for homework as well, or you can make this, you can do one of these during a live session, a synchronous session, or you can have the students do it like in an asynchronous session as homework or something. Nearpod, you can get a license. Our school actually has a license for this, so we're able to use it as professors. And you could look around at the site and read a little more of the details about that if that's something you're interested in. Another tool, or another couple tools, Padlet and Answer Garden, very similar. Padlet's like a big discussion board where students can post short comments or answers to questions. You could even have students go out and research something and post images, or they can even post a video on a Padlet discussion, like a cork board, almost like a sticky board. And Answer Garden, similar. Again, they're answering short questions usually, or posting something. Even they could post questions for you to answer. And then this, you can actually have it produce a Wordle where the words are all in a special image. So it has an interesting output to it, and they're free. And again, your institution can buy a license for Padlet, so they might have that already, but there are free versions. And again, the free is always limited in the number you can have or what you can do. I was using Padlet free for many years, and now our institution has a subscription to it. So again, just a recap of my course and how we do this as a team. We started off, we offered the Microsoft Office courses in hybrid, then we went to fully asynchronous, and now we're back to hybrid. And when we went fully asynchronous, some of the issues we ran into was with first semester students and technology problems or software problems and skill set problems, right? So then we had to maybe add a little more interaction, a little more of the professor back into the course. So we went to hybrid, where we're live with them once per week. And again, hybrid doesn't mean that you have to be live once per week, every week. It doesn't have to be 50-50% split. That percentage can be different depending on what your needs are. Now, then we worked with Quality Matters, and we made sure that we had all the checks and all the items in the course that were needed, like an orientation, you know, a schedule of dates, due dates, the assessments the students needed to learn in weekly modules with objectives. And we worked with the subject matter expert and an instructional designer so that we could put in some elements, you know, some technical elements that maybe the professors didn't have skills for yet, like the H5Ps and coding HTML pages, embedding videos, things like that. And then we also did the first 3 weeks. Like I said, we're using the digital literacy, and we cover all of these sort of basic technical skill sets so that by week 4, we know students should have all of that, and we're all starting on the same playing field. And then in the first semester course, we teach Word and PowerPoint, and in the second semester, we teach Excel and Access. And we include group assignments on like Office 365, where students can collaborate with each other, and that sort of gives that sense of belonging and community. And we have a couple of assignments we do, like we do a slideshow that they have to present together, and we do an APA report where they can work on that together. We do an integrated Microsoft Office project where they use Excel, Access, Word, and PowerPoint, and they have to create something from that, and that could be a group assignment that they could do actually in the cloud. Learning materials. So currently we're using CCI Learning eBooks as a site license, Gmetrics as a site license, and we use some of the Gmetrics tests as graded components, and we do a Microsoft Office certification test in each course. And we use H5P for some interaction. And in some of our courses that teach Microsoft Office, we use the Jasper Active, which is a week-by-week guide to learning, and the students work on the exercises each week that are posted in Jasper Active. And the pros and cons to these sort of SAM and My IT Lab and Jasper Active tools is that professors have to spend some time and set up the path, the learning path, and the exercises or assignments they want students to do. But again, the salespeople and their support team are very good at helping you get that done. And if you have a course lead, the course lead can set up that model for the course in the platform, SAM or My IT Lab or Jasper Active, and then have that copied out to all the other teachers' courses, and then they can use that so that they don't have to spend that time setting it up. Maybe a course lead sets that up for everybody. So a little bit about CAT-C. How do you become a Certiport Authorized Training Center? Well, years ago, I had an opportunity to do this, and all I did really is I contacted the vendor, I contacted CCI Learning, and there was some licensing agreements and things that we had to sign, and some rules that we have to follow. And it doesn't cost anything to get started. What costs is then I had to buy the vouchers, the Microsoft exam vouchers that we would distribute to candidates who wanted to take this test. So we set this up, and we ran the CAT-C Training Center for several years, and we offered these tests to our employees, to our students, to our alumni, to the general public. And we had to work with the registration office to figure out how we were going to collect fees for this and how this was going to be advertised. And we did that. And so we ran a little test center for a few years. And then I decided, this could actually be in our courses. And so we embedded the tests into our courses, and all students have an attempt at one exam in each course. And that's, like I said, that's packaged together for $25. And you can either have students pay for that at the bookstore, or you can embed it in tuition fees or in program fees, which is what we eventually did. And that saved money from the students buying the books at $75 each. And now students will use the CCI Learning books, go through the tutorials in the book, practice with geometrics to prepare for the exam, and then take the Microsoft exam. Microsoft Certiport, they've actually moved the exams online recently, so it can all be done from a distance, and we're still doing the exams now, and it works great. There's not really a lot of problems with that. A few odd glitches, like issues with connection problems, and like I said, some students had to contact their service provider to pay a little extra per month to get that connection, and then they can always cancel that later if they want to cancel that later. And what is the value of certification? I'm not going to play this little video here today, but there is a little video at the website, and it really talks about the value of certification. The reason I wanted to do it is I thought this is going to give our graduates a competitive advantage. When they're sitting in a job interview and they say, yes, I know Microsoft Office, I mean, they have the proof now to say, and I'm Microsoft Office Specialist certified. And that's an industry global standard. So it's great that we can offer that to students at this reduced educational price. There are Certiport authorized test centers all around the globe, and usually the test is between $100 to $125 to take the test. And we're packaging that in a package for $25 to our students. Now, I'm only able to do that because I have 3,000 students that we're testing per year. So again, I can order on bulk, buy site licenses, and then determine what that price will be per student. If you have fewer students, that price may be higher because so you'll have to talk to the vendors and work out what they're charging you to work out what your price should be. So I was able to implement this, and we've been running this for about 5 years now this way, and it's been going well. And at one point when we did have technical issues, I asked the team I teach with, did they want to continue this? Because, there's quite a strain on professors when there's technical issues. And all of them said, yes, they wanted to continue it. They felt that the value of the certification far surpassed the effort they had to put in for technical issues. But now 5 years later, our IT team has set this up and worked out all the bugs, and so it pretty much runs smoothly. And in the last year, Certiport has offered their own virtual connection to the test, and that runs pretty good, pretty smoothly. Again, whenever there's a glitch, we email Certiport and they fix it right away. So no problems with that. So this is something that you will want to consider embedding in your own course and getting in touch with a vendor to talk about it and talk about the pricing and come up with some format that works for you. That's what works for us, what I've done, and that's what we do. So again, how to set it up. You contact your vendor in the USA, you can contact Certiport. CCI Learning is now in the US as well, but they are the Canadian vendor for this, so you want to contact CCI Learning. Check with your IT team about technical requirements, because if you are going to be on campus, you're going to need a computer lab or many computer labs set up with the software for the test. And there's a software installation that has to be done. And then you can deliver this test, right? So first you sign the agreements, the licensing, and then you buy the vouchers and you set up your IT, and then you're ready to deliver this test. Now, then you have to determine the fee structure. How am I going to recover these costs? Am I going to sell this through the bookstore to students? Am I going to put this onto program fees? And so you determine that. And then you buy the MOS vouchers, sign the agreements, assign a CAT-C administrator. Now in this instance, I was sort of the catalyst for this, so I am the CAT-C administrator. And what the CAT-C administrator does is works with these other departments like IT to make sure everything's going to run smoothly. And so maybe I'm working with the bookstore to collect fees. Maybe I'm working with IT to make sure everything's set up. I'm also working with the accessibility office to make sure that their staff is trained and to make sure that they have the software installed on their machines and to make sure that they have text to speech or whatever tools they're using in the accessibility office, that those will work with our testing. And it does, and it's been running smoothly for 5 years. And the staff in the accessibilities office have all learned how to deliver this as well. So what happens next is we take the professors and the staff in the accessibility office and we train them on how to proctor this test, which is just a 2-hour or an hour training in the computer lab. I brought everyone together and we just ran through it ourselves. And the main responsibility of a proctor is they start the test for the student, and then they have to go to the student's machine and enter their proctor ID to say, yes, this is the person that is supposed to be here. Usually the students have their ID out, and then we enter into the system our proctor ID, and the student can begin the Certiport exam, which is usually 50 minutes for the MOS exams. And if a student is registered with the accessibility office, they will apply to Certiport directly for extended time on the exam. They usually get that, and then their test will be set up for that double time, or sometimes whatever Certiport has agreed with the student to set that time up for. And that's how you become a CAT-C test center. And then you're also able to offer those tests out to the general public if you'd like, and charge a fee for that. Or you can have your employees certified, and your teachers, professors can become certified. So it's really been a great program for us. And it's after 5 years, we've ironed all the bugs out and it's working smoothly. And from the student side of thing, well, something that you should know is Certiport does offer a variety of tests. So if you set up a Certiport authorized test center, you're able to offer all these different types of tests. I am just offering the Microsoft right now, but we do have accounting programs that teach QuickBooks, and we do have entrepreneurship programs. So these are other tests and we do have a communications course. These are other tests that we may want to look at. And if you have courses that offer Adobe or teaching different Apple content or Autodesk, you can look at the tests for that as well. And you can buy vouchers for those tests and use the same interface, the testing interface, to get the test started. And then these tests will be available to you if you've purchased vouchers from your vendor for them. From a student side, the MOS exam is part of their course, and you need to decide, is the MOS exam going to be optional or part of the course? I decided it was going to be part of the course. But we also decided as a team it was not going to be a pass-fail criteria. They were going to do the MOS exam, and whatever grade they got on that exam, it was going to be worth 25% of their course grade. It's not going to make them fail or pass the course. We thought, because if some students are just learning Microsoft for the first time and only had it for 1 semester, it might be unreasonable to think that they have to pass the exam in order to pass the course. So that's how we do it, and certainly you might want to give that some thought. Students pay, or do you have site licenses, or are the fees embedded in the program fees? Again, that's the fee structure that you'll have to determine. Students register at Certiport, they get an account, and when they have their Certiport account, that is their account for lifetime, and every test they take with Certiport after that will be saved in their Certiport account, and they can always print off a score report and their certificate anytime in the future. On-site exams, computer labs, well, you have to have your lab set up, you're going to need IT support, and you're going to have to think about scheduling in those computer labs when the courses are going to use the labs. Or if the exams are not part of your course, you're going to need a computer lab when you're on site to schedule when the tests will be in that computer lab. Of course, right now we're all online, so we schedule through Certiport and we use their virtual machines. And the teachers still proctor, but we proctor online virtually. And then the accessibility, again, we have to think about students with accessibility, and they will apply directly to Certiport to get that extended time. And finally, technical requirements, right? So again, if we have students taking from a distance, we've had the odd student who could not get into the website, and that was due to restrictions in their part of the country, and they had to contact their ISP, service provider, to purchase an app or such to put on their service account so that they could access the test, and then everything worked well. So again, at the end of this, to conclude, what you should have learned through this session is we identified issues with teaching Microsoft Online, and hopefully you can recommend some solutions to fixing those problems now. We've identified some tools to support teaching Microsoft Office skills, and maybe you can browse through some of those tools and see what might work for you. You should be able to explain how to set up a Certiport authorized test center at your institution if that's something you're interested in, and providing opportunity for students and other stakeholders to take those tests at your location or online, as we're doing now. Well, thank you everyone for your time and attention. My email is here. If you want to email me or connect with me, please feel free to do so. I have a few more slides that are just listing the references that I've used throughout the slides, and I also had them on the slides, but I'll just go through those few slides to end. So thank you for your time and attention.